beautiful friends, and welcome to Elemental Connections. We have Bridget Nielsen back with us today, and I'm so excited to be speaking to her about her recent adventures in Scotland. Welcome back, Bridget.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's really exciting. So, just in case you don't know about Bridget, Bridget is many things. You're a galactic ambassador and an artist and an explorer and just so many. Yeah, you just love life. I think it's like you're passionate about life and exploring all the avenues that you possibly can, it seems to me. So yeah, so I've invited Bridget here today to talk about her recent experience of being in Scotland, and being with the Stone Circles was the specific topic that I wanted to dive into.
Yay!
So I got really excited just watching while you were there. I was watching your Instagram like live feed and stuff, and it just seemed wherever you went, the Stone Circles. That was the I was getting. It was like I had this sense they were following you at one point.
They were like we think they're stationary, but they're not. They were moving with me. No, yeah, it's true. Wherever I went, they were, and that is partially because there's just a ton of stone circles, like, specifically in the UK. But and Ireland and everywhere in that area, but also there's a synchronization that happens to the frequency where like we're called into these places we've been before, and so all of a sudden we find ourselves right next to them.
Yeah. And was it your specific intention to go and visit the Stone Circles?
It was. I only intended to visit two that I knew of that were more of like the big ones. But somehow I found myself around, I think, like 5 different, I said it on my Instagram story, is like every Airbnb that I stayed at, there was one in the backyard. Like there was one up the hill, and it was very synchronistic to, when I plan a trip or when anyone like goes on a journey, it's like you intuit even before you get there. It's like, I need to stay there, and I don't know why, but I need to stay there. And I was doing that on the map, and it just happened to be that I always planned to be right next to a stone circle.
Beautiful. Did you get a sense through your journey of why that was for you?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely built these stone circles, not all of them, but I built some of these stone circles like in other times. And that was one of the insights and ahas that came through, like being in them, was just that complete familiarity and knowingness, and like I'm home in this creation that I helped co-create, and like the stones remembered me and I remembered the stones, and it was a very, very visceral and emotional experience, because the stones are alive. And I think that's just interesting in and of itself.
Yeah, absolutely. And how do you experience them when you say they're alive? What's your sort of visceral experience of that?
Well, there's the experience of the whole. There's the experience of like, okay, the circle as an entity of itself, and then there's the connection to individual stones, which is different, because they each have their own personality, and even the shapes that were chosen, especially in some stone circles like Callanish, are very, very whimsical. Like there's personality like streaming from the stones, and as we know, like the stone beings, as part of like the elemental system, they have their own consciousness in and of itself. So in that sense, how I experienced it was, well, the one-on-one is there were particular stones that would connect with me and have processes. So particularly like this one stone circle, this one stone, I just stood in front of it, and it just healed my heart for like 20 minutes, like completely took me, it was like Reiki on my heart from this particular stone. And it was some of the most intense back of the heart opening I've ever had. Like it's equivalent to like dolphins what they do to the front of my heart, the stone was doing to the back of my heart.
Wow. Do you think, what do you think the relevance of the back of your heart? Because I know you did a video about your ancestors. There was the thing around the ancestors. And I know when I've read people, you know, and I look behind and it's like kind of everything that's gone before. So
Well,
yeah.
I think you were just intuiting what it was in the question. Yeah, I didn't think about it necessarily that way, because it was a weird thing, because usually in relation to stones, when you go up to a stone or when you go up to a portal, it's you put your hands like on it from the front and you like engage with it, you know, in this like face-to-face method. But in this case, I was standing with my back to it and it was working on me. So there was something about the past that I have had with it. Like, so my past life, and even like in the linear progression of the juxtaposition of where it definitely was bringing through and streaming through missing currents of energy that I hadn't reconnected. So it was reconnecting that line of frequency through other times, which felt more like kind of like a past life reconnection rather than ancestral. But I like that. I hadn't thought about it that way.
Nice. So, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm popping with questions and ideas. Where do we start with the same circles? It's like, what do you think they are?
Yeah, I asked them a lot, because last year, I was with you in Glastonbury, and then I went to Stonehenge and went to a stone circle in the middle of nowhere in Wales, and Avebury. So I got like my introduction, and then this year I was with a lot of them too. So now I'm like, okay, every time asking them, I'm like, what are you doing? Like, what's going on here? And the answer that I energetically got was, it's a frequency accelerator, and it balances the electromagnetic field. It expands the human consciousness. So when we enter the stone circle, it completely starts recalibrating and expanding our energetic field and our consciousness, and puts us into different brainwave states, definitely, because it's very instantly meditative. So those are some of the things that I, right off the cuff, was like, okay, this was used as a technology. And we know that it creates a scalar energy, as does domes or pyramids, which can, if seeds are put in the middle of it, it can increase the potency of the seed, like how much yield, how strong and robust the seed is. So in a lot of agricultural spaces, they do that. They take the seeds to the top of the pyramids to activate them and get them going. So if a human is in that, a similar thing would happen. So that's one of the big things that I really saw happening, as well as on one level. And then on the other level, it's these interdimensional shifters where like you can teleport, you can go, whether that's astrally or physically, between them. That was a big thing that I noted, is I feel like it was a transportation system, like a teleportation system between the different, it's pre-Druid, like most of these stone circles, but the Druids, I think, knew exactly how to navigate them as well. But I think it was like to go from one to another, whether that's from that region we're talking about up there to New Zealand to Easter Island, it's like they needed, and they just had the technology to be able to teleport between these different civilizations that were working together at the same time, building this expanded consciousness through these physical manifestations.
That makes so much sense. It really, doesn't it? Like, as to see like where you've got so many similar structures across the world, that actually everybody's interlinked anyway. So that's really cool. So do you think the technology is galactic?
It's a good question. I mean, I've been getting into the Graham Hancock stuff. Have you read or listened to any of his stuff?
I've listened to some of his stuff.
Yeah, I've started really getting into that, because it's answering a lot of the questions, like, because I've visited many of these sites around the world, and I'm like, I can feel like that they were built at the same time, and like all this stuff's going on. And he's really brought in like the physical mirroring of the stars. Many of these sites are pretty much just a star map on the physical plane to mirror what's going on in the heavens, which Kalash, one of the biggest stone circles, similar and on the same line trajectory as Stonehenge, it's doing that. It's like a map of the stars. So was it the ETs that did it? There was definitely some, it could have also been inner Earth, but there were definitely higher conscious technologies that were used to move these like megalithic stones into place. There's something about if they wanted to reconnect with the stars in that way, like, and if they're mirroring it on the Earth, then that means that maybe they weren't as, like, they wanted the connection, but it wasn't quite there. So I feel like the technologies are definitely otherworldly, we'll just say, to be able to do what they did. These stones are just ridiculous. So,
and we don't really know the consciousness at that time. We don't know where humanity was and what was going on and who was there. And yeah, it's a big unknown. It's a big unknown field, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I get this real sense with it. Like with the trees kind of like are receivers as well of galactic energy or celestial energy. And they were showing me recently how like they feed that energy into the earth as nourishment. And when I was tuning in before the interview, I was getting a similar sense as well. It's just like these portals that kind of feed energy into the earth as well. So I wondered if you'd had any experience of them as receivers of the heavens, of the celestial.
Definitely. I mean, just like they're akin to acupuncture points, you know, where you like set that in and it's bringing in the frequency. So I definitely feel like it's bringing in that celestial frequency to the degree of, like, when I was in some of them, you've got this like round circle and it felt like a beam of light that would go all the way up, because there's so many of them, you know, like in a circle in this formation, that it really would be this ray of frequency that could go all the way to the heavens and be experienced. So yeah, that's a really good way of putting it.
Yeah. Oh, it's just, there's so magical. There's just so much magic here, isn't there? There's so much earth magic and ancient wisdom, and yeah, it's just so exciting. So, and also on one of your Instagram posts, you were talking about like the elemental energy. Was it the fairy glen?
Yeah. Yeah, the elemental energy, like I think we've talked about this before, and I just love that you're doing your channel and all of your videos, because it's like it has to be talked about. Like it's so ridiculously palpable and evident that magical portal to these other realms is so, the veil is so thin over there, you know. And there's this place called the Fairy Glen in Scotland, and appropriately named, and it's just one of the most otherworldly places I've ever been. And I'm like, Earth is so magical that like this even exists. Like I couldn't even have conceived that something that magical could exist. And I could really feel the different like elf and fairy energies that existed there. And there's a lot of tourists that go in and out, and it's like the most sacred, like delicate, like land that's being fully inhabited by these other beings. And so it was one of those things where it was a little bit challenging to like be like, hey, like, no, I come in peace, like I come to connect with you. I feel like they got that like once we connected a bit. But it is one of those things, and I think that the more that the human consciousness can truly respect that and be with it, the more that they'll open their doors to it, because they're just right there. Like you're standing right next to them. You're like sitting on their, you know, roof of like their little house or whatever. And I feel like the more that we can be aware of that, the more that they will start to really connect with us.
Yeah, just this, which is the same as your work that you're doing, like your galactic work, isn't it? It's the same for me. Actually, these two realms are so, you know, they're very interlinked with each other.
Yeah.
It's and like you were saying on your last video, for anybody who watched your videos from Scotland as well, you were speaking about that need to go inward to connect. You know, and for me, it's the same experience with the elementals. You have to go through the heart center. You have to go in to yourself and into your in to go out kind of thing. So it's I'm really curious about the connection between the galactic and the elemental energies, and I feel that with the stone circles. So I think that was
Definitely.
to
Well,
explore.
and it's funny because they're right there. Like, you know, like the galactic energies, in some cases they are right there, like just not physical. Like in Sedona, you're standing there, your energy, but you're just like invisible at this moment. But like the elementals are on Earth right there. We're sitting next to them, and we're just this close to like having them pop into the reality. And so there's something about it that's even more amazing, because you can just so easily make contact, where it isn't this like far away thing again that like the ancestors had to mirror to like reconnect. And there's more to it on that level, when it's just like we're right there, and if we just open to it, it would be the first, I think it's the first form of contact. Like we need to open to those elemental realms and fully communicate with those many wonderful civilizations before we can really connect with the stars.
Yeah, beautiful, nicely put. So kind of feeling like with the stone circles as well then, so the just to speak a little bit about the individual stones and your
Yeah.
experience of those different personalities, because like I for me those are elemental beings, like the stone people. um yeah, like I kind of seeing all these really not wizards, but like, or like elven lords, or I don't know, like this really deep wisdom that's held within these stones. So yeah, like if there's anything that you can share about your experience of these beings while you were there, that'd be great.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like I wonder how, like the stone itself has its own frequency, its own and energy being that is its essence to share. And I wonder how much of that was infused or embedded or like awakened by like the people, like, and the choice to choose that. You know, like if they went and they found the stone, and then the stone said, yes, like I will create this with you, you know, because there is very much so this like elder, like sage energy in these stones. And it's so, there's such personality that it's almost, it goes beyond, I guess, like what I perceive certain stone beings, like the free, like the energy essence of stone beings to be. Because like in Sedona, they're very active and they communicate, but they don't have to such that degree a personality. Like they're like a living entity, you know. And so I wonder how much of that was a co-creation, or just these specific stones that wanted to house that representation. So I guess I answer it in question, you
Yeah,
know.
so kind of like programming a crystal, the same kind of idea.
Yeah, and I think that would be more of the case, because most of these stones are granite, and which is like mostly quartz crystal, which can have these magnetic and very connective frequencies to enable what they wanted to do. And so it does feel like there is technology programmed in it, kind of like, I don't know if you've watched the Corey Good episodes, where whether it's the ancient Mayan civilizations or the giants that are in stasis, that actually like there's technology, like full advanced technology beyond what we can even perceive, hidden in just like what looks like a stone, if you knew how to access it. And that would be, of course, stored in crystal, of course that would be the way. And so how to access that. So there was definitely an interface of something that was very intelligent beyond just like the energy of a normal stone being, I guess you could say.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That really makes sense, and that really, it makes sense to me in the way that I understand the elemental realm, because for me the elemental realm also goes beyond like the fairies and the gnomes and these beings, and it goes into the consciousness of matter. Like
Yeah.
often when the elemental realm started talking to me, it was more the consciousness of matter talking to me, you know, like the underlying light structures under everything. So yeah, everything you've said there really makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So my other question was, yeah, if did you have specific memories of being part of creating it, like or like a sense of? I'd love to hear a little bit, because you mentioned like that kind of memory within you of being part of creating the stone circles, and what that experience was like for you.
Yeah. Well, to start, it's one of those things where it's like, for other people watching this, it's like, do I have a connection? It's like I just feel really drawn to the stone circle. So that in and of itself is like evidence of my connection. Whereas like some people are just like pyramid crazy, you know, they're just like the pyramids, and like I do feel that connection, but it's not the same. And so even just that is like a direct, like a course of like, oh, there is this familiarity and how much pull I have to that whole region of the earth. It came, my memory came in the form of a mixture of going into the stone circles and very much so knowing how to access them and how to use them. Even last year in Wales, when I went, I just like went in and laid down and could instantly like went into this dimensional wobble where I could have disappeared or gone into this other realm. And so part of it was like my innate way to access it. Like I don't, where some that is common but not that common, so it's like, how did this like how do I know how to do this? And then very much so that emotional feeling, which is a lot of how like my intuition speaks to me, of like, oh, like I've missed you, like I'm home, like, oh, how have you been, and honoring it. And especially when some of the circles were off the cuff, like there's off like the beaten path, like you wouldn't, and half destroyed, and then it's like, oh my gosh, like I've missed you. Like, so there was this, I didn't know that it was going to happen, and this energy came over me. But as part of the connection was going to these really tall mountains in Scotland, you know, in the rain and in the mist, and going to the tops of them, and remembering when that the big flood, the great flood of like kind of Atlantis happened, and I was sitting meditating at the top of one of these like crazy ancient mountains, and like I could feel and sense when the water came up before and took me away.
Wow.
So that, and I feel like that was in tandem with the creation of the stone circles, because some of the stone circles in different sites were to balance the earth energies before the Atlantean thing happened. And then some of them were remnants of the technology that was remembered post-Atlantean too. So, yes.
When you say that, and some of the information that's been coming to me about to do with the elementals in the Atlantean time, and it was like before that humanity and the elementals lived like, were completely merged. You know, we knew our own elemental body being, we could see the elementals, we worked together. And what I understand is that kind of humanity sort of started using the energies for their own wicked ways. You know, and so the elementals split and hid, basically. And so there were, yeah, that really makes sense that you're having that is remembrance. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
powerful, really
Yeah.
powerful.
Yeah. And there's a timeless nature to it too, like where the stones, they're like, we've been here, because there was this current at that time, when I was there, of a lot of stuff going on, like post eclipse, where people are just like dying, and like people are like having ego deaths, and like all this crazy stuff's happening. So it is like this mini collective apocalypse, like in an energetic way, and sometimes physical with people's own experience. But it was very much so like there was something about like the stability of like the stones, and that timeless nature of its higher frequency ray technology, that's like, we're here through your apocalypses, we're here through your ups and downs, and we are like the anchoring stability of like source light. And I really felt that stability. And also like, don't take it as seriously, because you'll come back around, you'll get it, like it's okay. There was very much so that energy too, of just being in the moment of evolution and transformation for all time. Like it's not something that is just this life, like it'll just keep going. And so just didn't kind of like enjoy the journey in the moment. So that was another message that really came from them.
Yeah, that's a really powerful one, isn't it? And to know that you keep going and you keep coming back round, it's, yeah, you're not losing anything each time.
Exactly.
Wow, that's really beautiful. Did you get any other messages that you feel? Yeah, I bet there was all sorts of little
little gems. What if, I want to know what you felt, because you've been to like a lot of them, right? What's your
You know
experience?
what? I haven't been to a lot of them at all. I
What?
I know, right? It's really crazy. I think I have only been to Avebury, and I'm pretty sure. I think there was a stone circle in the town that I live in, and there's just like one left standing. And where I go and walk, I find these big stones, and I'm sure, I really feel that they were from stone circles. Um, but I've had similar kind of experiences. When I went to Avebury, there was definitely memory there of
Mm-hmm.
when I went. Did you walk up the long sort of avenue? I walked up
Mm-hmm.
the long avenue, and
Mm-hmm.
sort of memories of. I saw lots of women. It felt very feminine when I went there. And again, that experience of meeting with the stone, with the individual personalities of each stone.
Yeah.
I mean, they've even got faces, like
Yeah.
it's incredible, isn't it? I mean, they look like beings. And actually, Avery has been calling me recently, and I almost just got in my car and just went for the day and didn't do it. But yeah, there's ancient knowing there.
Mm.
There's like a part of me. That's what I felt when I went. It's like that reclaiming of part of me, and that
Mm-hmm.
homecoming. And I definitely felt that with Glastonbury when I went. Just the way you were describing your kind of like, oh my god, I'm home and I know this energy and they know me. I had that when I went to the tour, and it was just welcoming me home. And it's that same for me. The tour's got that same kind of energy to it.
Definitely.
Yeah, into interdimensional portals and gateways is kind of what I get from it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's fun because like for us, like this is like our resonance, like of what that memory is. And even just like we just had a retreat in Sedona, and like one of the guys who was attracted to come, he was like, he had like some dream visions of being a Native American in like a plateau, and he didn't know where or whatever, and he came, and over the days like he kept on going out to the mesa behind our house, and like kept going, and finally he realized like that was the plateau, like that was the mesa in which he lived that life, and like all this energy came back to him. So it's interesting, like that the resonances can lead us in different places, like in different ways. Like it's not all the same for just anyone, but like following that call is so critical.
Absolutely. And I have got the call at the moment, and which is why I was kind of excited to do this interview as well, because I'm being called to go to the West Country in England, and then sort of Cornwall, and then up into Wales, and then over to Ireland, and then up to Scotland. I can feel this like journey that wants to happen. And this reclaiming and this meeting with these aspects of me and these aspects of the land, and gathering more like earth magic wisdom, I think, and just like it's so alive and palpable right now. That's my sense, and it wants us to communicate with it. And like you say, though, whichever part of it is calling you, whether it is the Native American or whether it's India or
Yeah.
it's like, because these
It's
monuments are everywhere, whether they're natural monuments or man-made or, well, probably like a co-creation. Most of them are a co-creation, I think, between the land
absolutely.
and humanity and galactic.
I like what you said about like they're calling us now, because it really does feel like these reclamation of these different energies is it's so important, because like we're talking about the return to wholeness and like that we are like the absolute and all these things, and it's like, but the visceral experience to really remember that we are, and some of the quickest ways is to remember the times where we remember that we were,
Yes.
and the different symbols and like little markers we left for ourselves like along the way that are holding these frequencies. I can just like see these other times that they see us too, and I always love that. It's like these other times they know what we're doing 10,000 years in the future, their future, and they're like, we're just going to like imprint this crystal and like remind them and have this access point so that they can just open that when they're ready. Like, so they're leaving these things for us, for ourselves, from different times, and we need to do that for the future too. Isn't that going to be cool when we can like fully embed and understand how to download like these different crystals and technologies for different times?
Absolutely. And I mean, we really need to remember right now. That's my sense is like the earth. We need to remember the times when we knew how to do this stuff, don't we? So that we can rebalance our relationship to the earth, because that's what's out of balance right now. It's humanity's relationship to the earth. So I put these places hold the keys, and to reawaken that within. It's actually we hold the keys too, don't we? And it's reawaken what's inside of us already. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome. So is there anything else that you'd like to share about your time in Scotland?
Just like it's a good question. I mean, there's something, well, for me, just personally, about getting to be like off on my own, like in this like rugged wild land for like days and days, that just returned me to like my internal space and like my internal knowing. And it's just so important to go off and to go off, like to just kind of like wander.
Isn't it? It's that, like, as you were saying,
Yeah.
that kind of yeah. And you were talking before about how domesticated we are.
Yeah. And for the sake of it, like you guys over there are really good at that. Like you just like, we're just gonna go for a walk like in the woods or whatever, and it's just like to wander, just because. And I feel like in American culture it's like, we are going on a hike, we are going to this like destination, and it's like it has like a need of what it's to be, where I feel like culturally it's like that wanderlust to just kind of like go because creates like an opening of non-expectation where things can flow. And I feel like people get into trouble when they think that they want something to happen. And that was one of the things that I got before I went, is it was like, don't expect anything, just like have a fun time, 10 days in Scotland, and I think going at it with that approach of just because is critical, or else the other energies can't come through.
Oh my God, that's so true. I love that you shared that. I went out for a walk with a mission to talk to a tree and to make it know. Did it happen? No. It's like I was up here, like in my head trying to make something happen. Yeah, you have to follow your feet and follow your heart, and like let the land just do what it wants to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I so admire that you went and did that for 10 days in Scotland. It's just awesome.
We just gotta do these things, you know, and it puts, and putting ourselves outside of like that comfort zone is so important. And come rain or shine, especially when it comes to like Scotland, you know, it's like just no matter what, just like being there with yourself is so important
Yeah.
wherever you are.
Yeah. Beautiful. Oh my gosh, thank you so much for sharing.
You're welcome.
It's so cool. Yeah. Does that
I
feel
mean,
complete for you?
yeah. And I'm really just excited for you to take the torch, and like, and I want to see like what happens for you. And like, you have to do videos about that, and then also like what's been coming through creatively, like with, oh, it's so beautiful, like your Instagram, and just like the way that your aesthetic to like to with the elemental and with creation and like with your jewelry, it's just so beautiful. So I'm just excited to see what you continue to create.
Oh, bless you. Thank you. That's really
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm equally excited to see what you keep creating. It's really great. Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Bridget. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for this conversation and ability to talk about it. Because I was like, should I do a video about like stone circles? And I was like, I'm just gonna be like I'm just gonna be like, yeah, stone circles. Like I couldn't figure out a way to like make that not so out there because of my experience with it. So this platform has really helped, and I'm just like really grateful to capture all of this with you, because there was a lot there.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. It's beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you to everybody for coming and watching this. And if you haven't come across Bridget, please go and check her out. She just shares so much amazing, beautiful content. And if you enjoyed this interview, please go and check out my other interviews and like and subscribe and share. So much love to you. Have a beautiful day. Bye.